Does this guy have a job? What about her? And him? He's a mythical creature. The people of Lumbridge love farming, animal husbandry, and bigoted hatred towards other sentient creatures. But what's going on beneath the surface of this city? No, like seriously, what is this? Or this? What in the world? What I mean to say is, how is the local economy doing? Today I'll be doing a comprehensive unemployment report on the inhabitants of Lumbridge, talking to every single person, taking into account everyone's demographic and employment status, and compiling that into a report that I will present to you at the end of the video. Now, before you get done typing that angry comment, yes, this is a direct rip-off of any Austin's economic report videos. I love any Austin, and if you're watching this not knowing who I'm talking about, go check him out. He's a lot funnier and better at this than I'll be, but he doesn't make RuneScape videos. Now, if I've learned anything about employment reports from watching only a single YouTube channel's parody reports on video games, it's that the best way to find out about the employment status of residents is what? Anyone? That's right, a direct survey. That sounds like a really fun time, but the first thing we need to do before we can even start taking any data is determine where exactly is Lumbridge. Well, just looking at the town, we have some handy fence lines that can serve as some boundaries. There's the fence to the east that separates Lumbridge from the desert, and that area is labeled Alcaharet on the map, so that's a good line. To the south, we have this fence that separates off the swamp area, but I don't feel comfortable calling this the line for a couple of reasons. For one, the swamp is Lumbridge Swamp. Not only that, but this fence is clearly property of the castle or town, and it extends a long ways to the west. On top of that, we have these guys here, and I'm not trying to get into the direct employment survey just yet, but both of these gentlemen down here are clearly labeled as tutors, several other of which reside within Lumbridge. There's also these paths up to the town, so I think we can assume this is a well-traveled area, and these guys probably live somewhere in Lumbridge. Anyways, I think we can say everywhere down to the coast and anything in the swamp also counts as Lumbridge. Now, to the west and north, we get a bit foggy. There's this large forested area that has other potential Lumbridge inhabitants in it, and it stands to reason that a castle would have a wooded area, a hunting ground, or a forested area that would help maintain the castle. However, all the way over here, we have the clearly labeled Draenor Jail. Now, thankfully, we also have these handy chunk maps that clearly show areas of the game that were kind of sort of meant to all go together, and this is right on the border of one of these chunks. So we can say that all of these 4 chunks is definitely owned by Lumbridge. To the north, it gets a little more muddy. You might argue that this chicken farm, mill, dairy farm, etc. would possibly go to Draenor Village, but I posit that a village is smaller than a town with a castle, and the castle would also require some sort of food and textile industry to support a castle, like an area to produce crops or animal products. So I think we're safe to assume this belongs to Lumbridge as well. And for the other side of the river, it's sort of the same situation. We have a nice fence to divide everything. It's also on a chunk border, and these farms fall within the same criteria we use to attribute the ownership of the other farm to Lumbridge. So this is Lumbridge. Cool? Cool. Now it's time for the best part, the direct survey. We're up here at the eastern farm, so let's start on this side and work our way down towards the titular bridge, then up to the other farm, swing around the long Lumbridge fence and into the swamp, and end up at the castle. Hello, sir. I noticed by your themed attire and how you're swinging that thing and some potatoes that you look suspiciously busy. Holy cow, look at this guy working the land. No doubt about it, this guy is employed. This guy right here is also clearly working, but for the clarity of our data, we do not count scarecrows or other inanimate objects in the survey, so he's not applicable. Another farmer, he's kind of just wandering around and we can't talk to him about anything, but you can pull straight gold out of his pocket, so I think we're safe to say that yes, this farmer is employed. Another farmer, exactly the same as the last guy, same pitchfork and gold in the pocket, just female instead of male. Hi there, Mr. Vaskin. Oh man, this guy is on his hustle. He watches the patch, he sells farming equipment, and he gives advice. Well, I give him 3 employed checks, but that's not how this works, Vaskin. Enjoy your day job, sir. Now this gentleman, the tool leprechaun, is very clearly employed. He'll store your farming tools and convert crops into notes, very industrious, but I'm not sure if he can be counted as applicable. The Kingdom of Misthalin is paying for this survey, and I don't think they want mythological creatures or non-humans included, not being a governing body of either group. So unfortunately, he's going to get a big ol' non-applicable. Another farmer here, standing near some hay bales and holding a pitchfork. That's probably employment. My goodness, the accent on this countryside of Lumbridge really is thick, but Seth Groats here, unfortunate name, claims that the cows across the way are his. He owns a dairy farm. He's employed. I think this is like the 4th farmer we found, and probably all of them around here are like field hands for Seth. They seem a bit lazy and wander around, and aren't important enough to have a memorable name, but they are employed. Hello, sir. Is that a professional walking stick? Doesn't seem like Guy here has anything to say about any kind of job he does or gainful service he provides. He's kind of just wandering around listlessly with this walking stick. Doesn't seem like very employed behavior to me. Oh, look at this. Another member of the Groats family. Unfortunate name. Are you like his wife or sister? Oh, you're his daughter. And with that medieval deadlift setup you got there, I have no doubt that you're employed. Now, all of these guys are actually not residents of Lumbridge. In fact, they're sort of an infestation, which is contributing to some of the less tolerant opinions in the town, but we haven't gotten there yet. So unfortunately, they are not applicable for this survey. However, I'd like you to consider that as their own sentient species with a society, we'll call it, they might actually be employed by their own government. But that's another video. Now, we do have some gate guards here at the border crossing to Alcarad. I'm going to guess by their manner of dress and speech and my intimate knowledge of Alcaridian customs that they actually are not residents of Lumbridge. They commute from Alcarad, where they're employed there, to guard this gate, so they will not be applicable. Good day, Mr. Barfy Bill. Unfortunate name. We won't make any judgments just yet, but that doesn't sound like a very high-level nickname. Who are you? Ex-Sea Captain. Ex-Sea Captain? Yes, very good, Chunky Will Alt. I appreciate the focus. He doesn't sail anymore because of chronic seasickness? Okay, that's reasonable, but what is this? Sir, are you implying that you committed insurance fraud? That's concerning, but we aren't the police or the IRS or whatever. Okay, here's what we want. He doesn't work anymore, so he spends his days canoeing on the river. That sounds pretty retired to me, so I guess his telling you about how to make a canoe here is more of a free public service, or like a grandfather telling you about something in nauseating detail. But he doesn't seem old, and he didn't say retired, just that he doesn't have to work anymore, and according to the Bureau standards, if they aren't looking for a job, they will not be applicable. We're here at the local bar, and this appropriately named man is a bit hard to decide on. He's complaining about needing a new king, which could go either way, but he is in a bar in the middle of the day, so I think we're gonna have to call him unemployed. Arthur the Clue Hunter is also here. He seems to be a wealthy treasure hunter, which is a bit niche, but if that's how he funds his lifestyle, then that's a job. Now here we have the bartender, who not only properly greets me to his establishment, but also offers his services. Very clearly employed. We have a couple more folk loitering outside the bar, a couple more general men that say some more general things that don't necessarily point to general employment. In the same area, though, are three auspiciously dressed individuals. Sure enough, all three of them readily offer their services to train in their respective combat styles, and even offer to give out some free items. Clearly a government-funded adventure assistance program, but I'm not judging, I'm just counting. Employed. This here is the local general store, where we have the very clearly employed shopkeeper and shop assistant. Pretty clear what they do all day. However, Donnie here seems to be a well-informed vagrant, or perhaps just a man with a name. He has a lot to talk about, like a lot, but none of it really points to direct references of employment. Upstairs in the store is some sort of resident soothsayer. Let's see what she has to say. Abigail, very nice to meet you. I tried to escape with my son Suro. Oh no, I think we've entered into some sort of life story dialogue. Okay, got some money, got a boat, tough journey, and then you were attacked. And the boat overturned. Oh my god, this is awful. She can't find her son in the water, and oh Jesus, she finds a body. I'm sorry, the single sob just got me. This is a horrible tragedy. Oh, look at that. She cheered right up and provided her employment details. She makes money scrying for the gentry and trading on the Grand Exchange. So she's kind of like a telecommunications specialist who makes a side profit trading stocks on Robinhood. Today's sponsor. Just kidding. I'm not that employed. But she is. Just north of the bar, we have another tutor that teaches people how to cut down trees. This guy also sells high-end capes that require a special certification to buy. Good day, sir. You look like you have a job. Whoa, evil alt firing off with a no-context question, but I guess that's a good way to prove this guy knows his stuff. Sorry, sometimes, most of the time actually, our enumerators like to go off script. Ah, here we go. He's apprentice to the smithing master in Varrock. And as you might have guessed by his name, he's an apprentice. Not sure if that's a paid or unpaid internship, which does matter. Unpaid internships are not considered employment, but he looks like he's doing pretty well for himself. At the same time, medieval internships weren't usually paid, as far as I know. This is a tough one. I don't see anyone else around, and he has the Scooty Boy Jr. anvil here, so this is probably his forge. I think we're going to consider him employed. He's over here ostensibly making tools and stuff for the town and castle, which is an important job. Fred the farmer? Well, I want to assume, but we gotta ask if we can, just to make sure. Not the preferred options, like I said off script here. We'll choose the most benign choice first. Okay, that's just directions back to Lumbridge. Well, his land, my livestock, I think that confirms it. Another farmer here. and several more scattered in and amongst the cows. Maybe they work for Fred, but all that's important here is that they are working. Hello, madam. Millie Miller, who lives in Mill Lane Mill. So what do you do? Oh, you mill flour? Actually, you mill grain into flour, you don't mill flour, but that's employment. Alright, let's see what's down here. Oh my. I've heard about these guys, the Humans Against Monsters group. Now, most of them are too caught up in a bloodlust to actually chat, but the guards are willing to talk. Nice, straight to the point. Where did you people come from? And that explains it. They came from out of town, which is nice because we can just call all of Ham not applicable. Faith, how's it going? Just like the other named farmer at the other patch, she sells farming supplies, but will also cut down your tree for 200 GP if you don't have an axe or you just don't want to. Now, this suspicious gentleman was unwilling to talk to our enumerator, but if we wait here long enough, as his name suggests, he will attack low-level players. Now, crime isn't legal employment, but it is a job, and this guy looks like he does this pretty consistently. Alright, I think that finishes our northern and western side of Lumbridge. Let's head to the south. Making our way into the underdeveloped areas of Lumbridge, out in the swamps, this group of 4 adventurers are looking for the lost city of Xanaris. But as their blatant lack of even sleeping bags and the presence of these carts suggests, they are out-of-towners. Not applicable. Hello, Father. Sheesh. Okay, I think that says enough. He's meditating. So I think he's sort of a religious zealot and living in seclusion. He did build this house himself, apparently. He does look very old as well, and religious hermitage does sound sort of like retired behavior. 1,000 gold for a candle? Well, it's a bit predatory, but he is selling a product. This is employment. Let's test this guy and see if he knows his stuff. Holy shit. With glasses like that, I have no doubt. And he's handing out free government pickaxes. Employed. I don't even need to talk to this industrious fellow. Name the fishing tutor, making a net and wearing that hat. That's employment. Alright, we've surveyed all the Lumbee lands outside of Lumbridge proper. We're going to finish surveying the rest of the folk outside the walls, then move into the castle to finish the survey before we move on to the official report. I don't think I should be here. Hello, sir, you look remarkably pallid. Security expert, huh? Those teeth, I thought you might be a lawyer. Holy cow, this guy looks important. Yes, what do you do? Right to the point, he trades in tickets for prizes like an arcade clerk. Employed. With a hat like that, I'm guessing you have a certain profession, sir? Cooking tutor. Hello, Bob. Might I take it from the sign outside that you are the titular Bob of Bob's Axes? Yes, he buys and sells axes, and apparently has jokes. Now in this area, there's a handful of men and women who seem to be wandering around, perhaps perusing the singular shop or learning how to cook. I noticed this singular house with a singular bed, so maybe these people all just pile into this one bed? Kind of kinky, but it does ring true with the whole many peasants in a single bed vibe, like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, I guess. But I digress. I don't think we can confidently label any of these fair citizens as employed. Shh, we're at church. In here we have another random woman, the prayer tutor, and Father Eric, who is very clearly employed as the priest of this church. Wow, you have quite the drip, my guy. I know with a getup like that, you gotta have some important job. Taskmaster. Not sure exactly what that is, but it seems pretty official if you have to carry around a fancy cane and wear a monocle and hat like that. See, now this guy is a professional. Doesn't even give us a chance to speak, immediately tells us his specific function. Nice staff. Spotted another tutor over here. He's got to be government subsidized because he's handing out some free full suits of armor. So what does a doomsayer do, exactly? Okay, this guy is a bit of a kook. He claims to be the danger tutor, but then he also says he wanders around the world putting up signs. That doesn't sound like a strictly Lumbridge function. I think we might be looking at a traveling federal employee here. Perhaps he's staying here for a while, but clearly his work takes him mostly, apart from those signs we saw near the candle cellar, outside of the greater Lumbridge area. Okay, we're on the home stretch. There's a lot more people here than I expected, if I'm being honest. Just the castle left, though. Oh, this guy almost hid from us. Another tutor, but I don't think we actually need to survey the tutors anymore. He's definitely employed. Another guy hiding here in the gatehouse. Hello, Mr. Purdue. Do you sell chicken? No? Okay, you run the lost property shop, so like a local lost and found. And you charge a fee. That's a job. Again, there's various men and women about here, but I don't just want to blanket say all men and women here are unemployed. But I also haven't found any that would suggest that they're doing a specific job. Oh, hello, Mr. Hans. Can I specifically ask you what you do here? The most applicable thing here would be telling us how long we've been here, but that seems really just like voyeuristic tendencies, not actual employment. He is just walking around all day, so... At the heart of the castle and dressed for the job, I know this guy's employed. Sure enough, we can ask him if we can use his range. Ooh, and he knows his stuff about the equipment. That's it for the ground floor. Let's head upstairs. Crafting tutor. Seems to be a lot of teaching jobs here in Lumbridge. There's several men and women around here yet again, and I hate to just say all men and women are unemployed just because I can't talk to them beyond surface conversations. So given the context of them always being here in the castle, they must have some business going on, whether that's manual labor to maintain the grounds or maybe do some clerical jobs. So I guess these guys and gals can all be considered employed. You can't just hang out in a castle without a reason, and following that same reasoning, I think I'm going to go back and make the 2 men and 1 woman within the castle walls employed as well. They're probably like groundskeepers or something. These opulent beds make me realize that I have seen a shocking lack of beds while surveying the town. I touched on it earlier with the single bed inside the single house outside the walls, but I think I need to quickly go count up all the beds I can find. We only have a few more people to speak to though, so we'll finish up the survey and then go count those beds before the final report. Duke Horatio, an honor to meet you, sir. Yep, your castle. Landed gentry, that is a job. And on our final floor, we have 2 hardworking bankers, literally talking to customers as we film this. Very employed. That should be everyone here in the town, so I think that finishes up our survey. Let's go quickly count up all the beds in and out of town to get a little more data. I smell an underlying problem that's hidden in plain sight. We have the 1 bed here in the peasant house by Bob's that I already pointed out, but over in the cooking tutor's house, I guess, I spotted another one, so that's 2. Looking back at both Fred and Seth's farms, they both have a bed as well, so that's 4. Upstairs in the general store is another one, though it is just a pile of hay and a blanket. 5. Nearly missed this one, but the hermit in the swamp also has a bed. That's 6, and I don't think there's any more except the one in the castle. Okay, so there's 2 left here in the castle where we just were. However, one of those beds is very clearly exclusively for the Duke, being that it's in his room, and I doubt the Duke is sharing his bed with anyone but the Duchess of Lumbridge, who has been missing for the last 25 years. So that's it, just 8 beds for the entire Lumbridge area, and only 7 of those are available for the entire population. Definitely something fishy going on here. Even sleeping in shifts, that's not enough sleeping spaces unless people are sharing these obviously single-person beds. We can make some speculations on the implications of this issue, but I'll save that for the overall summarization. Alright, I will compile all this data into a handy report, then we'll take it down to the courtyard to read off our findings to the Duke and his populace so they can know what's going on before we move on to our next region. So, press conference in 3, 2... Yeah, see, it's not direct plagiarism. We cut to the conference on a different number. Anyways, we're reporting today on the employment situation here in Lumbridge. If you want to see the full report for yourself, I've linked the document in the description. Inside, you'll find not only this full report, but the raw breakdown of all the data that was collected, if you're so inclined to examine the numbers. Anyways, let's get into it. Total surface payroll employment is at 38 persons, and unemployment is at 25.5%, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported today. Lumbridge is a modestly sized, semi-feudal agrarian town centered around a single stone bridge and an underfunded castle. Though geographically positioned at the southern gate of Mistlin and bordering the swamp, desert, and woods, the economy is surprisingly localized and somewhat vertically integrated. The local economy is primarily fueled by smallholder agriculture and government-sponsored training programs. At the time of the Bureau's survey, enumerators identified a total of 51 applicable residents, with 38 found to be actively employed in a combination of public service, manual labor, subsistence-level commerce, and combat or skilled professional tutelage. The remaining 13 were either unaffiliated with any formal industry, loitering in bars, or wandering aimlessly in the street. Of particular interest to the Bureau were the following structural facts. Lumbridge's agricultural sector is bifurcated between 2 landowners, Fred the farmer and Seth Groats, unfortunate name. Fred personally owns nearly 25% of all sheep in Gillinor, while Seth operates the only local dairy. Their control over food production is so disproportionate that the economy could be reclassified as a 2-man livestock oligarchy. This is supported by the fact that both farm owners also own beds. Reasons for this speculation will become apparent as we continue the report. The town features a single retailer, Bob's Axes, and 1 general store, both of which somehow meet the commercial needs of 51 people and several itinerant adventurers, even though approximately a third of Bob's available stock can be found on the ground in the town. Though maybe this blatant lack of care for the town's tools is exactly the reason that the retail sector of Lumbridge is able to stay in operation. Castle Lumbridge houses a disproportionate number of the town's jobs, including domestic staff, clerks, a cook, multiple bankers, and an unusual number of state-funded tutors. In fact, the government's investment in tutorial staff is so substantial that education accounts for nearly 26% of all formal employment. That said, this employment rate comes with significant caveats. Lumbridge is also experiencing what the Bureau economists refer to as a bed-to-body crisis, wherein only 7 beds are known to exist for the entire non-noble population, resulting in a per-bed occupancy ratio of 7.1 to 1. The Duke himself possesses a personal bed, further exacerbating the town's aristocratic spatial inequality. There is no evidence of additional sleeping arrangements, which raises the alarming possibility that this scarcity isn't accidental, but rather a deliberate strategy by the aristocracy to encourage peasants to simply work until they die, utilizing the town's respawn point as a makeshift housing solution. Also worth noting, throughout the Bureau's direct survey, not a single child was identified anywhere in Lumbridge. While some might be tempted to attribute this to census oversight, the more likely explanation is far more logistical. With a bed-to-body crisis and work obligations that seemingly never cease, it stands to reason that the citizens of Lumbridge are simply too tired to reproduce. Between farming, tutoring, axe selling, and dying repeatedly to adventurers, there just isn't a practical window for romance, let alone parenthood. A few key observations from the survey. 1. Employment is highly concentrated, either in farming, training new adventurers, or aimless and seemingly unnecessary castle service. 2. Most retail workers, tutors, and even farmers operate solo, with little to no middle management or administrative support. 3. There is no evidence of industry or inter-town trade, and most tools are sold by Bob or found on the ground. On the surface, Lumbridge may appear to be a functioning agrarian node held together by milk, wool, and free combat equipment, but based on the Bureau's observations, the economy is closer to a neo-feudal resource sink, subsidized heavily by the monarchy and the willingness of the citizens to sleep standing up or not at all. Labor movement is minimal, social mobility is fixed at the knees, and the average resident owns either nothing at all or all the sheep. This suggests a rigid class structure centered on inherent land ownership and castle proximity, with minimal private enterprise and zero infrastructural redundancy. It is not the Bureau's role to pass judgment on Lumbridge's political or ethical economy, only to observe its mechanical function, and function it does, barely. Where does this leave Lumbridge in the rankings? Well, we don't have any other rankings yet, but we will, with your help. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment down below saying you liked it. That will let me know if I should make more of these reports for your enjoyment. Huge thanks to my channel members who got to see this video early. They don't know it yet, but as a channel member, they can suggest where I will survey in Gillinor next if this series is well received. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Chunk Evil. See you next time.